some?
Yeah. Dying, I don't need this.
I literally almost wore that same I know what t-shirt that is. I just wore the same one. And I'm so embarrassed sometimes when I go to these cons and they'll be like, you came 5 years ago. And they show a picture, it's the same t-shirt. I do own a few.
All the same shirt, people have it like Batman.
Exactly. They're all Batman.
He met Priscilla Presley. You know what a fan is of Elvis, right?
She was just walking alone in the lobby, and I had like a complete meltdown. It was great.
Right away, sent me the picture with all the love signs.
I was like, I'm not crazy, but which is always the best opening.
You know,
I'm not a crazy fan.
Don't worry, I'm not crazy. One time I was in Mexico, this girl comes up to me with a box of cookies, and she had my name spelled out. She says, "Don't worry, they're not poisoned."
And then he wanted me to try them first.
And but anyway, yeah, you're not crazy. And the cookies weren't poisoned. I don't know, I didn't eat them.
All right, so let's get started. So obviously we're going to talk about both your work on Batman, clearly. But both of you are doing stuff individually right now. I want to start with somebody else and kill me if I don't ask about it. So I'm going to lead off. Greg, I want to start with you. You had a very big announcement earlier this week.
Yeah.
Pretty big announcement. Greg is working on Deadpool Batman.
And that's to beat Spawn Batman by just one copy. Because I want to rub that in Todd's face.
No, I know you probably can say nothing, but I have to ask. I got to shoot my shot, right? I got to shoot my shot.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so will we get a definitive answer on who wins?
Oh, I don't know if it's really that kind of story.
Oh, okay, that's interesting though.
Yeah, I don't really know if it's that kind of story. I know that's what everybody would expect.
Yeah.
But I don't really think it's that. But it's a very fun story, very enjoyable story. Scott's already read it, Jim Lee's read it, and Jim goes, "Oh, it's such a fun story. Can't wait to see what you do. How you bring this to life, Greg." So you will be entertained. And I gotta tell you, I have so much respect for what writers do because, my story is 25 pages and, and it's all there. And they go, what a challenge it must be for a writer to make a self-contained story, 3 acts that take place within a 25-page span. That's mind-blowing. Anyway, I was given a very fun story to work with, so
That's awesome.
it's gonna be great, yeah.
I like that we worked together for like 10 years and you appreciated writers now. I wrote a lot of single issues. Just kidding.
But no, and the thing is cool. I mean, I got my start at Marvel, right? And I've always been a Marvel guy at heart because that's what I really grew up on was Marvel comics. And even though DC's been great, I had to go do it for Batman and DC. As a company treated me great. I loved all the people that I worked with there, and this way then made a lifelong friendship with this guy here. And so one of my first gigs at Marvel was Expo, so I got to draw Deadpool very early on in my career.
Right.
And then I go and do Batman, and now I'm doing this crossover. They haven't had a crossover in 20 years, and I'm doing those 2 characters. And it's just mind blowing is when I had done Spawn for many years, and then I go to do Batman, and I got to do a crossover with those 2 characters. And sometimes I go, I must be living in a simulation because my whole career pattern is just too unbelievable for me to sometimes grasp. So I'm really excited that I have this opportunity. It's just wow, what a lucky guy I am.
As soon as it was announced, I remember because I did both your spotlight panel at MegaCon, and I remember at that panel you said that you're working on something for Marvel, right? That was like February, working on something for Marvel that's like stereotypical, but I don't know if you guys were expecting it. Was this that? Because that was
no, that would have been the Wolverine Revenge.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay,
all
right.
Wolverine Revenge, which is just I don't know if you picked it up. It's a lot of slashy, bloody stuff, which is like that.
All right, last question about that before we move on. Last question. Deadpool, Batman, is the Grant Morrison one with Nora are they gonna kind of tie in?
They're separate. They're separate stories, and I was lucky enough. Like I consult for TC, so I get to see stuff early. And Zeb's story is awesome. It's really good, and they're gonna kill it. Like so excited for them. It's like bonkers great. And then Grant's story is like out of control too. So you guys are in for a lot of treats. It's like people really brought it with this one, and we got some cool stuff to announce soon with the backup for ours as well too. So
yeah. You mentioned about writers and we were talking about we work together. You don't know this, but I said to CB early on, I go, maybe you get Scott to write my story for the Batman See?
It's like you didn't do it, but I asked.
Well, yeah. It's a contract, so it wasn't an option.
Right.
But I did request.
Well, Scott, let's go to you. I wanna, before we get into court vowels and all that stuff, absolute Batman, right? So killing it right now. Killing it, absolutely.
People love it.
Yeah. You guys got up here saying how, like, before you weren't sure. I remember we had a brief conversation. You was like, I don't know if how it's gonna go out and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, no, you got this, dude. It's like it's Elseworlds. It's gonna work. It's a new different take. It's huge. It's gonna work. You're doing all this different stuff. And that's hit so far. Obviously, really great. You have the tease of Bane and Joker.
Yeah.
Right, so we got Joker coming. You teased in issue 1, which that's evil, dude. You teased it in issue 1, and we still haven't really seen him yet.
Issue 14 is a big special Joker issue where you're gonna learn everything, a lot about him, and we actually have, I don't even know, none of this, sorry, like spoiling everything. But like, we haven't announced it yet, but we're gonna do an Arkham special. It's in the early fall, and that's also gonna have some surprise teases about his history. So we have a lot of Joker stuff coming.
Is that like an origin quote-unquote issue?
Well, it's sort of, it tells the history of Arkham. So
Okay.
it's a strict horror book. It's like really, really dark and really, yes, I'm surprised DC let us get away with it. But and it has a big reveal about Joker's past. It's not really, I guess it is kind of an origin, but also the 14 one shows him now in the present, and you learn kind of the secrets of what he's up to. So it's a full Joker issue, 14. So.
That's awesome. What did you say about Bane? I know like this post you saw something about Bane because he's coming up real soon.
Yeah, he's way bigger than you think. I think I showed it to him, and it's like, it's traditional. What we wanted to do with Bane was like he's sort of a mirror of Bruce in this one, right? So he is Bane, like it's the same character. He's not someone else in disguise or any of that stuff. He's raised the same way in a prison in San Francisco, and his father is kind of a rebel fighter. But Bane is the one that kind of decides, he's seeing all this and what happened to his dad, and seeing himself like in a prison, when he's approached by Joker and stuff, to be able to be like, listen, like, there's an easy way to protect your whole island, to protect everyone you care about. Just become Bane for me, and I'll make sure that this island, Santa Prisca, is, wealthy and prosperous and everything. And so Bane is sort of the person that took the deal that Batman has not taken in life. And so they come at each other really hard, where it's like, if you think that your friends and your family and these people, Bruce Wayne, are going to be safe with you being Batman, you're wrong. And so this one really goes hard, this arc. I mean, Nick wanted to call it Brutal as the name, and then we went with Abomination instead.
That's awesome. Yeah. Love it. Now, let's get into some court. Let's go to the beginning. Let's go back. I wanted to Tarantino, right? That's where we are now. Let's go to the beginning. So this is for both of you. Greg, let's start with you. So when you guys got on Batman for the New 52, what was the vision you wanted to bring to? Because the New 52 was all about rebooting, right? Like bringing a new era to a whole new generation of fans. What were the discussions like when getting Batman back in you guys probably got like 2010, 2011,
2011.
Yeah.
I don't know, Scott presented a brilliant idea, and I still think it's one of the best ideas ever had. And he was resistant to that for a long time, but I think he's starting to accept it, right? That he created something so fantastic. But as far as what we wanted to present it, I didn't know. It's like, when they approached me, they didn't immediately tell me that I was going to be doing a relaunch and it'd be issue number 1. So I really didn't feel the stress of taking on Batman at that moment. And Batman carries with it the pressure because he's universally loved, right? And fans are crazy. And if you mess things up just this much, they'll come for you. And so when both of us realized, what we were actually involved in doing, I think we both had a little bit of panic going on in our guts. And I know it was true for me. And I didn't know exactly how to dive in and approach Batman because it takes me a while to get my legs. I'm not like other people. I need the book to speak to me and the characters to speak to me, to tell me how they want to be drawn and tell me how their mannerisms and show me how they want to act. So that takes me, 2-3 issues before, and then it just continues to develop as I go forward and forward. So the first issue doesn't really look like how the last issue ended up, and that was partially from, as I just said, that and the combination of nerves. So I'm still nervous on issue 2. And by 3, I was like slapping myself, just do what you've been doing for how many years? Stop it! And that's when we sort of relaxed and fell into groove. And like Scott would always say, he feels that we really started to, you know, get the gears together as two individuals at around issue 5. And that's where, and from that point on, it grew and got better and stronger. But again, I just want to say again about the Court of Owls. I think why it's so genius is because, you know, Bruce Wayne is always, and Batman is always, you know, taking himself and feel he knows everything about Gotham that there is to know, egotistical, arrogant, overconfident, and to unseat him in such a way to go, this has been here for 400 years, and you don't know anything about it. How to pull the carpet out from such a character as Batman like that, to me was just brilliant. And to bring him to the brink of destruction, I'm getting chills talking about it. I think it's one of the best things I've ever encountered, and I'm so proud and happy to have been part of it. Don't you agree? Come on.
Yeah. I know you guys probably are too humble to like agree, but like definitively, Court of Owls at this point is going to be, it already is, like Killing Joke, Dark Knight Returns, like it's in that camp. I know again, you guys are like, no, but like, right guys, like the Court of Owls. So I always like to get in there, like, did you have an idea? What was the vision? Like, what was your point of view for that, just for what I just asked Greg?
Well, I mean, like, I vividly remember, like, the beginning of it for me when it was just like Greg said, where I had no idea. First of all, when I signed up to do Batman after having done Detective, I was like just starting to get comfortable. Dick Grayson was Batman. He was really easy to write because he was like scared and excited to be Batman, and I was scared and excited to write Batman. And like we got along great, and he talked about his feelings all the time too, you know. And so they were like, "Oh, do you want to come over and do Batman? Grant's going over here, this, that." And I'm like, "Great, we'll be more Dick Grayson, but you know, a little bit of a graduation, sure." So I signed up when it was supposed to still be Dick, and then they were like, "Oh, it's actually going to be Bruce," and I was like, "Oh my god, that was a lot to handle." Because Bruce does not talk about his feelings, and he's the whole history of it, you know, weighs on you because he's had so many amazing adventures. And then they're like, and it's going to be Batman #1, and that like sent me, like he said, into a panic that lasted about like 2 years, nonstop. But I was in the office when they were telling me this, and I was in a room in the New York offices, and they had a Batman pinball machine. And Mike Martz is explaining this, and it was like Batman '89, and it blinked, and he's like staring over Mike Martz's shoulder at me. You know what I mean? And he's like, so it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be Bruce Wayne, and it's like blink, blink, blink. You know, and it's like, and it's gonna be #1. And it was like blink, blink. And I was like, I have to leave this office. And I remember literally calling my wife and being like, I think this is too big for me. I don't think I can do this. And and she was like, look. First of all, like, you can't quit, we need the money. We were pretty broke. But it was like, secondly, she was like, you know, just do what you do. Like, saying like he was saying, like, just kind of slap you and be like, just do the thing you do. And so the way that it came about was, I'm like, this is the way I always start a story, right? Is, what is the thing I'm most afraid of at this moment, right? What is the thing I'm most hopeful about? And the thing I was most afraid of was the whole history of Batman, right? But I was like, walking around New York City, having left the office, I grew up in New York City. And I went back, I was meeting a friend sort of near my old neighborhood, which is downtown. And a lot of New York history, you go downtown, it's some of the oldest neighborhood, you know, the cobblestones, Wall Street, all that. And it hit me, I was like, all these generations that have lived here before, well, you don't know any of their stories, right? And then you have Batman, where I just got comfortable, I just felt, you know, confident. And then what if there's something where the history itself comes to life and is like, you don't know anything about me. And that's how I felt. I felt like I was just getting comfortable on Batman, and all of a sudden the entire history of the character was coming to get me. And so that's where I built, well, how do you build an organization out of that? Well, they'd have to be really hidden. Well, what if they hide in the oldest buildings? Well, what if they're right under his? How do I make a story that has these concentric circles to get closer and closer and closer to him, where every time he thinks he knows the city, it gets more undermining. So the Court of Owls can't exist, oh, they do exist. The Court of Owls doesn't have bases. They do, and they're in your buildings. You know, like, well, they don't have any attachment to me. Yeah, your buddy, Dick Grayson, was supposed to be the talent. Oh, well, and also, you might have a brother who's like all of it getting closer, closer, closer. So that's kind of how it came about, was really trying to, you know, do a story about the thing that was most terrifying to me at that moment, you know, and that's why I think, you know, Greg is not only my, you know, my best friend, but a great mentor in this zone where he was saying the same thing, where it's like, you gotta just write the stuff that matters to you, write the stuff that, you know, you feel vulnerable about in that way, and that's what we really tried to do the whole time we were on the book, you know.
Yeah, great. Now, I've said to both of you before, one of my favorite things about Portal specifically is how you guys made it feel like there was a villain that was always there, but they're brand new, right? The Corvallis didn't. They existed in fiction before that you introduced them, but they didn't in real life. So that was one of the most brilliant things I think you guys did. But going off of that, another thing you both have said in the past is that Gotham itself is a character, right? So what was, and you kind of said, you know, walking the Zone and in New York and stuff like that. So what went into making Gotham like? Because it really sets the tone for the book. So your version of Gotham, Greg, let's start with you on the visuals of that. Your interpretation of Gotham and making it feel like a character itself.
You know, when I'm asking these questions, it's just so instinctive. It was Scott's idea. Tony just executed it.
Is that true?
Well, yeah, I mean, but it was that it was always like, what happened was DC, I mean, nobody's there anymore that like made these ideas, so I feel comfortable saying this, but had some very bad ideas, I thought, about what to do with the Joker, with the New 52. They did not want him in any one story for the first years. They wanted to sort of rest him. And so their idea was at one point to lobotomize him, or to like kill him and then have him come back from the dead later. And they just couldn't figure it out. And so I was like, well, look, why don't we do something that's really ominous, you know, like have him leave something behind. And they were like, what? I'm like, well, like in space, you can do that. And then they definitely like pushed back on that a little bit. But I was like, no, like, you know, it's like nailed there, and then I can use it. If you leave it there, I will pick it up, because I already had sort of beginnings of an idea when we started Court of Owls, and so they agreed. And Tony was awesome. Tony loved it, and he contributed it too. I'm not trying to take the idea away from him entirely at all. Like he and I were talking with them at the same time, so he was like, oh yeah, they could do that, whatever. And so yeah, that came from both of us there.
I've talked to you so many times, and that's the first time I'm hearing this from you. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, I just thought it was really spooky if he nailed it to a wall, almost like, you know, like, I have something big I'm going to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like Martin Luther, you know, like nailing like this sort of statement, you know, being like, I am coming for you. And this time all bets are off. And faces.
So you knew the whole tearing off face, like you knew exactly where you were gonna go, that's what you want to build, because that is really what you built your version of Bruce and Joker. That's where it all kind of started. It kind of goes with it. Because I love the whole like love aspect where Joker loves Batman in this weird, twisted way, right? And they can't exist without each other. That's why Batman won't go him and Joker won't go him. That's one of my favorite things you did. But Greg, I want to go to you for the visuals of that. So you know Scott now planted that. He knew where he was going. But when you know it's time to draw, I mean, you got some gnarly art, dude. So were you excited to do like all this gross monster?
It's just the same old Spawn stuff, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
Old slippers, but you know, he just said, you know, they could be attached with, you know, hooks and wires and belts and all that, you know, and pull back so you can see a big smile, you know, just stuff like that. So then it's just like the joy of being a little kid, you know, when you're drawing, where you're just letting your imagination go and you're laying on the floor, you know, like that, and seeing what magic unfolds. So that's, like I said, I don't put a lot of reasoning behind it, if you will. You know, there's not a lot of logic. You know, it's like, what is the tone? And how do I capture that tone? And then I just let my pencil do it, and until I go, oh, I think that was neat, you know. Here, what do you think of that? Right? So I really don't have a formula. Like for instance with the talent, right? So I go, all right, it's a talent, all right, so it's owl. So you go claws, feathers. So if you look at my talent and look at like the seams that I put on a suit, sort of mimics feathers and stuff like that loosely. And so it's just that sort of thing. So it's just like Spider-Man, right? Webs, right? It's a spider. So it's just trying to take it in that simplistic way and portraying it. So, and that was it. But where I did have a direction as it developed was, and this ended up being a part of the story for us that we both ran with as it developed, was at some point I reasoned, well, the face is no longer on ice, so it's going to start to decay and rot. And you know what happens to rotten meat? It attracts flies and stuff. So I said to my colors at the time, I said, as we go forward, just make it look worse and worse, like it's deteriorating, and I'll start to draw flies buzzing around it. And then Scott saw that and goes, oh, we'll start writing the flies into the story. And so it's this is part of the fun of making comics and having a collaboration, because a lot of stuff develops, you know, with motifs that you didn't start with, like end up being, we use a circle, we use a fly, so all these things start to come together on their own in this magical kind of way. And so it actually played into the ending, because we were teasing that the Joker had made it into Batman's cave. And so Scott had the idea on the computer screen, ha, right? We all remember that, ha. And so he goes, I need something more. And so I go, he says, if you come up with anything, and I go, I'll put a fly on the screen. And he says, that's it, that's, you know. And so there you go, it's like a hint, was the Joker really good? Because the flies follow him. So that's the kind of stuff that's so much fun. And so, and it's not planned, right? Everything developed along the way, right to the end. That last bit was just, hey, let's run with this stupid thing because the face was rotting worse.
I do want to add though, like, I gotta give you your thoughts. I understand, like, it's natural to you, it's easy, but like, not everyone can do that, dude. Like,
well, and also,
it's like,
well, listen, messing up in school worked out for me, but
there you go.
I recommend don't do as I've done. But I was lucky. Yeah, I'm blessed in whatever way.
You kind of have your finger on the pulse, so to speak. Like, you just know what's cool, and not everyone. That is a talent in itself.
I don't know what I know. I'm grateful if people like it. I obviously can't predict what people will or will not like. I just let it happen.
But what's hard to do that you do, and I learned from you, is like you don't think about what people will think is cool. You think about what you think is cool.
Yeah.
And like there's a confidence from that. Like I every time that also comes with an anxiety where you're like, am I totally alone? Is nobody like up to this point, even with Absolute Batman? He knows. He was the first person I called about Absolute Batman to be like, what do you think?
No,
you
we're
know
walking in a hall.
Oh yeah.
At a shop.
No, but remember I called you. Yes, like both. But he's always the first person with this stuff that I'm like.
And I just, because you already brought it up, touched on his insecurity about whether it was going to do well or not. Let me just confirm this. So we're walking, right? And he's telling me about this, and he's wondering if it's going to do well. And I said to him, this will show you how this filter works. I said, Scott, do you like what you wrote? Yeah, very much. You believe in it? Yes. Okay then. So even if it were to fail, you still should be happy. And he goes, you think it's going to fail? I didn't say anything at the start. That's the filter I've dealt with for a decade.
And then I texted him later. Remember, I was like, you don't really think it's going to fail.
And if my wife were here, she will tell you how I've tormented him over the years with this insecurity, because he would text me, what do you think? And I'd wait for a long time to reply, and I'd go, good. And he'd go, just good.
And then I'll wait like 2 hours. And I'll waiting for like, please write back.
And I would just trickle it until it's fantastic. It's the best thing I've ever read.
I feel like you would just dot and never type it in, so I'm like waiting for the response all the time. You know?
So, as an older brother, you know, you talk to your sibling, and so.
The other funny thing, thinking about that Joker stuff, I remember I was literally at the first day of soccer practice with my kid, who was like 6 at the time, and I was talking to him on the phone, standing on the grass, and I was like, yeah, the face, it could like totally rot. It's like rotting with flies on it, and then he straps it back onto his own face. And I was like looking around and realizing all these parents are right there. Oh no, what have I done?
No, I think that's a good point you said. Like, I know Greg's like, but like, cool is cool, right? Like, if you say you're cool, you're not cool, right? Like, people who try to be cool aren't cool. You just kind of have to
Like
just
when
be.
he said, Priscilla President, I'm not crazy. Cookies aren't poison.
No, but it really does, like, the fun of working with him, and whenever we get together, we make what we think we would love to read, you know, and as a teacher, that's the golden rule of the class that I teach, is sort of, you know, the best advice I can give is you've got to write the story that you would love to find the most that day. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be a space opera, it can be political, it can be, but the one that would make you most inspired to find. And so when we get together, it's not about like what would fans like or what would this or what would that. It's really like what would we love to pick up that day. Right. And I'm sure there'll be a time where, like, you know, we'll get it wrong, or I'll get it wrong, and be like, you know, I would like this, but nobody else likes it. But the most wonderful feeling is like when you put something into the world that you love and you're vulnerable to, and you know, it's personal to you, and then other people respond to it. It's like, that's literally to me like the core thing about what art is, right? It's human beings expressing things that they care about and other human beings reacting to it. That's why I know, not to get into an AI discussion or whatever, but it's like, it's such a human experience that it's so connective that way that it really means a lot when you guys respond the way you do, because it's not us trying to give you something we think, you know, oh, how do we get everyone to like it? This is personal and we love this, hopefully someone else will.
Yeah, the only time I let the tail wag the dog was when I was just starting on Batman, and I had made the mistake, I'd go to message boards, and there was a lot of people not liking the idea that I was going to be taking on Batman, especially for Spawn. So I was hearing that, you know, it's going to get Batman. Oh, it's going to get Batman. So I go, I'm going to give him the shortest goddamn Batman cape. It's like, so that's the only time where I kept fans in mind when I actually did my design there. But apart from that, that's a bit of it. I drew Batman I wanted to see.
It's hard though. I mean, like, one thing to keep in mind, it's so nice to come to conventions like this and see you guys and get to say thank you. And that's why, you know, we all come for work too, but I mean, ultimately it's really our chance to say thank you for supporting us and all this stuff. But, you know, it is like, as a creator, like, one of the things that is hard to adjust to when you're on a character like Batman is that you will always be upsetting people no matter what. Like, nobody, like, if you're not using Catwoman, people that like Catwoman are upset. If you do use Catwoman, people that don't like that relationship are upset. And you hear about all of it all the time.
And I say blame the writer.
Yes.
Draw what he tells me.
There was one moment where it really got to me where, you know, it was like, when we did Death of the Family, we loved that. I was so proud of that story, and it went over. It was well received. We were really lucky. But what I didn't realize, because I didn't pay any attention to it, was like that there were all these tie-ins. That I don't like. I'm not like, yeah, the tie-in has to do this and that and whatever. I just joke. If someone wants to use our Joker to be terrifying in their book, that's fine. But because of the name of the event, and because there were so many tie-ins, people really expected somebody to die. And I didn't know that. I was just writing the Batman series, and it's my fault. I never like made that mistake again about not thinking about how much fans invest when they buy a lot of things around the story. I just thought, oh yeah, fun Joker in everyone's story. And so when we ended it, it went over well, and I remember I was driving back from North Carolina from a DC summit, and all of a sudden my phone started going nuts with like all of these people being like, fire you, like, fire Scott, this is the worst, I bought all these books and like nobody died, why didn't someone die? And I was like, oh my God, like, oh, I'm sorry. And then I knew I was been prepared for the next wave of like anger, because we were gonna do Zero Year, which redoes the origin. And that I was prepared for, because I loved the story, I knew what we were doing, but I knew that, you know, everyone loves Year One and that stuff, but we wanted to try something different. So I knew that was coming, but then when it came on top of it, there really was like hashtag fire Scott, like I was really and so I called him up and I was like, oh man, this is rough, right? It was like, you know, God, they're really mad at us. And he was like, uh-huh. And I was like, wait, they're mad at you too, right? And it was, no, man. All the kids were like, we're so sorry, you have to work with that asshole. I was like, oh my God, that was so
I don't know what you're talking about,
he was
Scott.
like, he tried. No, he tried. I think he like looked and found maybe 1 out of 1,000 things that was like,
But I wrote
yeah,
it
Greg
myself.
too.
I'll let it out.
Yeah.
I wrote it myself. I created a whole other
I was like, Greg subs too. From Greg. Greg Capullo.
Now, I could ask you guys, of course, we about Batman all day long.
Go Cats!
Cowabunga, it's morphin' time.